Doors open.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin. Just entering the room. But we are here, of course, we're in a good mood because I think we're generally positive people. As Ravens fans, I think it's a difficult moment because of all the rumors, allegations, and reporting going on in a negative light regarding the Baltimore Ravens' number one wide receiver, and that is Zay Flowers. According to reports, this is to the extent of what we know at this point. We know that Zay Flowers is being investigated by the Baltimore County Police Department for domestic assault, and that this event occurred. According to the reports that I've been able to get my hands on, the day after the divisional round against the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
So that's what we know. Mm-hmm. Now, what we're here to do, and the reason we wanted to go live, I think Glenn will agree with me here on this, is that we wanted to look at it from all angles, keep this show pretty open-ended, and talk about it with you guys, right? Yeah. Talk about, what could happen, really everything, right? Like, we want to get into all the different angles of it, all the parties involved, look at it from every single direction, and really divulge into it and talk about it with you guys. First off, though, we hope that more than anything, we hope that as more and more details are revealed, it doesn't get worse and worse for the victim and for Zay.
Yeah.
Right? Like, first and foremost, we don't want to hear about her getting the mess beat out of her, right? Yeah. Because that's terrible for any human being. Mm-hmm. I think that's what we'd say first. And then secondly, we hope that this ends up being something that, who knows, maybe I'm trying to stay positive here, but is being not, I don't want to say overblown to minimize the situation, but what I mean is that is being looked at because it needs to be looked at because it's what it is, and maybe isn't what people are envisioning it to be, right? Because when we think about these things, we think of Ray Rice. We think of, what's the dude's name? Greg Hardy, right? Like, we think of these big names and these terrible, terrible situations that people were in. But I also think it's fair to say that we don't know yet. We simply don't know. So really, it's just about figuring out what could happen and talking our way through it, right, Glenn?
Yeah. It's we don't know a lot. Obviously, the details are still. Well, we don't know how many more. If there will be more details, all we know is that he's being investigated for an alleged domestic assault, and so we just want to go on and kind of talk through what could happen, and just all angles, because like it's kind of like me and Jimmy were talking off camera when we first heard about the news, and we just thinking all angles. Like, I think about my own personal situation. Like, when my son was little, he had 2 injuries in a very short period of time under the age of 2. He broke a leg, then he broke an arm, or was it the other way around? He's 10 now, so I can't really remember. But he broke 2 bones, completely separate incidents, harmless incidents. But because he broke 2 bones in a short period of time, but under the age of 2, it triggered the response of the hospital, because we took him to the same hospital, to send a police officer out and Child Protective Services out to our home unannounced. Now, of course, when they got to the house, my son's there and he's got his arm in the sling. So I think it was so it must have been the arm was second, leg first. And he's smiling, and they obviously could tell that there was nothing. Their presence wasn't needed, but it triggered an automatic response, an automatic phone call. And of course, when the cop and CPS, that was the only time we saw him. We never saw him again. They realized it was just simply 2 accidents that caused my son to break bones. So I guess that's what the hope is that a phone call was made, maybe an argument, maybe there was a loud argument, maybe a neighbor heard something, was concerned, called the cops, and so that was the extent of the investigation. Just 2 grown adults having a loud argument. I'm sure everyone in the chat has had an argument with someone, whether it's a significant other or another family member. Typically, those closest to us know how to push the buttons quickest and, get us upset. So I'm hopeful that that's what that is. That this is simply just the cop doing their job and responding to a concerned neighbor over some shouting. But we just don't know, Jimbo, and we don't know what happened. We don't know what the Ravens knew. We don't know when they knew, if they knew anything. But it gets a little bit, I think at any other organization, maybe it's different. But here, because of the Ray Rice issue, because Ray Rice basically became the poster child for domestic violence in the NFL after the video was dropped. And of course, he never played another down in the league. The Ravens have instituted a zero tolerance policy when it comes to all things domestic violence. And so, it brings a lot of questions up. Like, did they know? What, to the extent did they know? What actually has happened? And if they did know, then how was Zay cleared to play in the championship game? If there is more to this scenario, which is why we wanted to go live. Like, we didn't want to just do a recorded video, which this time of year we do primarily do recorded stuff, but we just don't know what to say. We don't know what to say. We don't know. But I think, Jimbo, if there's more to the story other than just a loud argument, if there was an incident of assault of any kind, judging by what they say, right, then they're going to have to cut Zay Flowers, right? Like, and then this is all alleged. We don't know. We're talking strictly hypotheticals
at this point, right? Because it's all information we have. No, that's a good point. One of the things that I have been made to understand, and I could be wrong about this, and if anybody in the chat knows any better, please correct me, but I understand that no one was arrested when the police were called.
Right.
Now, if somebody knows otherwise, please fill us in. Yeah. But so the reason I wanted to say that is because to your point, Glenn, if I'm being told that is correct. Some folks in the chat have said no one was arrested. So if that is the truth, then I understand what you're saying in that. So then my next question, so this is a 1,000,000-word answer of getting to your question, is that the next question I have is, when did the Ravens find out? Because if it was indeed the day after the divisional round, how long could the Ravens really not know? If there were people in the media that most likely found out before the championship game, then you better believe, I know I'm betting my bottom dollar that EDC knew about it. Mm-hmm. Just an assumption, but that's an assumption I feel like I'm safe making. And then on top of that, if EDC and the Ravens org knew about it, how do you keep that then from the NFL as a whole? So really there's two parties outside of Zay that could have intervened, right?
Yeah.
Because Zay could have gone two ways, right? Maybe he didn't say anything. Maybe he tried to somehow look. Zay's 22 years old. Mm-hmm. His what is it called? My wife knows a lot about brain anatomy. Prefrontal cortex. She'll probably be proud of me if I got that right, but I think I did. I don't believe it's fully developed, which has to do with your decision making until you're 26 years old. So he's a 22-year-old kid. He could have somehow concocted an idea that the Ravens weren't going to find out. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then he could just brush it under the rug, right? If all that happened to be the case, that's one way he could have gone. The other one, he could have gone right to Eric, right to the org, and say, hey, this just happened. I effed up. What do we do? Right? So those are the two things he could have done. And so what I'm trying to say here is that your question opens up a whole Pandora's box of questions. Mm-hmm. But to answer yours, if the Ravens did indeed know, and all they have now, because the other wrinkle is that they're not going to have access to that report based on the victim's privacy, right? The state of Maryland holds those based on laws very, very close. It's a law that they cannot divulge that information, right? It's not made public because of the protection of the victim. So if the Ravens didn't have we'll assume that the law held, they didn't have the report, but that they knew. Mm-hmm. Once again, I think two safe assumptions. Just two safe assumptions. So if that is the case, and they knew. I wonder, to your question, why they didn't sit him. Right? Like, why don't you sit him?
At least sit him while you gather.
Right. Sit him while you gather. Is it because maybe that raises more questions? Is it?
Or maybe he said, maybe he did come to them and tell him, look, something, the police responded to an incident, and he gave a story that, look, it's nothing, not a big deal. We had a disagreement. We raised our voices. Neighbors got concerned. Police showed up, saw nothing was going on other than a simple argument between two adults, and they left. And so maybe that's why they let him play. It's just if it was any other organization, I think they'd have more leniency from the court of public opinion. I do think that because it's the Ravens and because of the Ray Rice situation, people will give less leniency to the Ravens if they find out that for any reason they allowed Zay to play. If there were more serious, if the issue, what the accusations are, if they end up being serious and that there was some sort of an assault, I mean, they're going to get absolutely destroyed in the court of public opinion, Jimbo. They're going to get absolutely, and really rightfully so, because they do portray a family atmosphere where they have zero tolerance of any domestic violence or any attack or any assaults. Well, just because he's an important player, I mean, look, we all love Zay. This is why it hurts so much. Everyone loves Zay, Jimbo. Like, even Lamar has a massive group of haters that no matter what he does, he could cure cancer and walk on water. They're still going to hate Lamar Jackson. I've never heard anyone say anything but positive things about Zay Flowers. People love him, whether they're children, whether they're, grandfathers, grandmothers. That's why, like, it hurts so, but that doesn't matter whether he's number 53 on your roster or if he's number 1 on your roster. If you have a zero tolerance policy, then, he's got to go. He's got to go. And so I think that's the man, we need more answers. We got to wait for more stuff to come out.
And that's exactly why we wanted this to be open-ended. I see some of you guys making some comments on the side, and that's good. We want to talk through it is the idea. I saw somebody mention that maybe we were levying some accusations here. These are all hypotheticals. Like, imagine, like, to me, I think of the books. Remember the books of your kids where you got to the end of the chapter and it was like, if you want this to happen, go to this page. If you want this to happen, go to like, that's in my mind what we're walking through, right? Like, this scenario 1, this scenario 2, this scenario 3. So to add to another layer to this whole scenario, you're talking about the Ravens intervention, and the Ravens not intervening is one thing. But to me, like I said, if the Ravens knew, you better bet your bottom dollar that the NFL knew. You better bet your bottom dollar.
Because if they didn't, then they're going to absolutely hammer the Ravens.
Yeah.
Like, if the Ravens didn't communicate this, like, I don't know what the chain of commands rules are, but I got to imagine if something like this pops up, you have to make the NFL aware of it.
Yeah. And so my question really comes down to this, is it okay, scenario, guys, remember, hypothetical. If the league knew, is it not a bigger black eye for the league that they let him play? You know what I mean? Because they already have this whole list. They already went through this whole list with Ray Rice. They have the exemption list or the exempt list, all this stuff. And they still ignore it. Like, that's the thing for me. If the league knew, as bad as this could look for the Ravens, to me, could look way worse for the league. That's just my opinion.
It could. No, you're right. And it'd be interesting to see how the league does it if they place the blame on the shoulders of the Ravens and say, and just kind of hammer them. The problem is the league can punish the team. The team, the league can punish the player and the team can punish the player. But who punishes the league? There's really no one to police the league other than fans by not, they can certainly withhold their viewership and not purchase. They can do certain things, but there's nobody governing what the league does, right? There's nobody saying, hey, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go, Jimbo, but it freaking stinks. I mean, it freaking stinks.
Hey, check the private chat too, Glenn.
Let's see here. Okay. Let me see here. Okay. I'd be down for that. All right, yeah, and part of the reason why we wanted to go live is because we wanted to see if there's any police officers in the chat who'd be willing to clear up some things and help us just understand the laws of how things work. Because I know that certain places, like let's say either party doesn't want to press charges. Let's say that this happens all the time. Police show up, neither side wants the police necessarily involved, and maybe a neighbor called, and even if it's clear there was an assault, if both parties don't want to press charges, in some places the cops' hands are tied. But in other places, the police can press charges on behalf of the victim if there's visible evidence of an assault or something like that. So part of the reason why we wanted to go live is just to find out what the rules here are in Baltimore and in the surrounding areas, because we just don't know. We don't know what the rules are. We don't know. And look, we don't even know if he wasn't the victim of the assault. That could also be the case where the woman was assaulting Zay Flowers. That could be the case.
Well, I don't know if Zay, I guess that's true.
Why? What do you mean? Why?
Well, like it's being reported that he was the assaulter.
Oh, he was. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know. I don't know. I don't.
But who knows? Maybe they both assaulted each other.
Could have been. Could have been.
Yeah. I just don't know. But the really cool thing is that no better than a police officer himself to explain the legalities of this situation and kind of how it will go down than the only Sean Pisker himself. And Sean Pisker is going to hop on in a few minutes once he can figure out this link situation.
Nice. Okay.
And I think he's in full uni too,
dude. The real deal. Yeah. We got to find out what's going on. And look, I see all these people saying women lie, but what if she's not? You guys are acting as if you act like we're coming to this place. We don't know. We're asking questions, but there's so many people in the chat that seem to know. Like, were you guys there? Do you know the situation? Do you know the people? Have you heard firsthand from those involved? I mean, are you just saying women lie? Because that's not good either. Women just lie. Okay, well, what if she's not? What if she's not lying? Have you guys considered those who are saying that she lied? What if she didn't lie?
Right.
That's what we're here for. Like,
yeah.
And I get that there is occasions where people do lie. Like, I remember there was a punter, the punt god. Remember when we drafted Stout? There was that punter.
Yeah.
The Bills had him.
Yeah.
He got cut because of a rape allegation. It has since come around that allegation was complete and total BS.
Yeah.
As far as I know, I think it was Matt Ariza.
Yeah.
I think it was his name. He's still not in the league, despite being very famous leading up to the draft for how far he can kick a ball, because a simple allegation can be sometimes all it takes. If you notice, a lot of times allegations are headlines, and then the correction saying that was simply just an allegation, it was BS, is back page news.
Right.
It's not making the front page. So it could be that. All I'm saying is some people are in the chat acting as if they are certain. And so I just want to know.
There are very few people here right now who have all the evidence. Very few.
And if you're in our chat, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So I'm excited, though. I'm excited to talk. I'm excited. I wish we were meeting Sean on better terms. But Sean Pisker, it's great to have you. Officer Pisker, how are you?
Yeah. Hey, what's up, guys? Finally good to meet you. I wish it was under different circumstances, but here we are.
Officer Pisker, how are you?
Yeah. Hey, what's up, guys?
You got to turn us down. We don't want to hear ourselves twice.
Sorry, it's weird.
Okay.
It's all good. So Sean, I guess first and foremost, thanks for jumping in. Appreciate
of course.
You always being in the chat. And are you pulling a Jimmy right now? Are you driving?
No, I am parked on the side of a shoulder right now to do this.
Okay. All right, perfect. Okay. All right. So
appreciate it.
Now I know you're just kind of catching up like the rest of us, but my question, Sean, that I think you can answer is, does a party involved have to press charges, or can the state of Maryland do so for a victim?
Okay, so this is kind of a complex answer, but I will do my best to summarize it. basically, if it's not a first-degree assault, meaning an assault with a weapon, or she was seriously injured to the point of like serious injury or death, then no, it would be, second-degree assault, which is a misdemeanor, which generally means that it's just like, pushing, maybe some punching, something like that. If the victim, whoever it is, whether it is Zay or his girlfriend, does not want to press charges, then they don't have to. However, the law enforcement officer can still decide to press charges even without victim cooperation, if that makes sense. Because, now the only situation in which we could do that is if she has signs of injury, like bruising or something like that. Now, I will say, and I can't attest to how Baltimore County Police handles situations. I can only attest to, I work for the Maryland State Police, so I can only say that. But if I go to a call and neither one of them want to press charges, but she has signs of injury, my hands are kind of tied, meaning she cannot want to cooperate or have him charged whatsoever, but I would have to arrest him in that situation.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. And that's what I was going to ask, going to be my next question. Similar to that, my wife is a caseworker. And so there are certain things that if people say to her, like you said, her hands are tied, like she has to report these things, right? Like you're obligated by the state to
it's not even a policy thing. It's like a state law. If it meets the criteria of, just like if someone had a bench warrant, it says, I shall make the arrest, not may, not, it's just one of those hands are tied situations.
Now, my follow-up question to you is, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to also say real quickly that maybe there's not a direct number to this, but most officers, I could say, that I know and that I've worked with, if the signs of injury aren't like severe, like let's just say it's a scratch on her face or something like that, most officers aren't going to make that arrest because they'll just do the report that they have to do to document the incident, and they won't make the arrest if it's not, super obvious, if that makes sense. So there is a little bit of leniency there, but it's obviously, like I said, all situation based.
Yeah, and that was going to be my follow-up question. I don't know, some of this is probably going to be subjective, but when you show up to an incident like that, I mean, what does it take for you to simply say, all right, somebody's getting put in the back of the car, right? Because it sounds like he wasn't arrested, right? So
correct.
I don't know, what that would mean from a visible evidence standpoint, when the police were called to the scene.
So, I work in Frederick County, and we're a full service barrack, which basically means that we handle every type of call, accidents, this kind of stuff. And a lot of times, a lot of the ones that we deal with out here, especially recently, have seemed to be strangulation cases where even if it's minor for just a couple seconds, the person's still being strangled. And unfortunately, in those situations, if they have any type of bruising on their neck or face or anything like that, that's where it meets, our hands are tied. It's a first-degree assault situation. But if there's just some punching and it's a misdemeanor or what, if it's just very, very minor injury, there's not a concrete answer to your question, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think it's very situation based on what are her injuries or his, can we try to figure out who the aggressor is? How is the person acting since we got there? A lot of the times if the person just, the instigator, let's just say they're drunk, they don't calm down and we can determine they're the instigator. A lot of the time they're going to take a ride. If that makes sense.
Gotcha.
But it really comes down to basically the criteria is, do they have signs of physical injury? Did it happen within the last 48 hours? And is it actually a domestic? Because a lot of times people can live together but if they're not romantically involved, it's not always a domestic, if that makes sense. So, you know, they have to meet the criteria of it together. Hold on, whoops, accidentally hit the button. Is it domestic? Is there signs of physical injury, and did it occur within the last 48 hours?
Gotcha. And then my follow-up is in what the information we've been able to get, what's been made public, they reference the Acton, Massachusetts Police Department. I was kind of confused as to why, you know, I mean, if the incident, as far as we understand, was in Baltimore County, like why would they be involved in the situation?
So what I'm going to assume is that this incident happened in Baltimore County, and she, I guess, was from Boston or wherever. I'm assuming that she went to Boston and reported it there, and they said because it happened in Baltimore County, it had to be reported to Baltimore County. Especially in Maryland, we're very like jurisdiction based. It always the area in which a crime occurs, that agency has to handle it. So, for context, in Frederick County, anything that happens on a state route is ours, and anything that happens on like a normal road would be the sheriff's department or the city if they're in that jurisdiction.
Gotcha.
Now, what if it just because charges, weren't necessarily pressed, arrests weren't made? Does that mean they can't be made later on down the line as new evidence comes in?
No, they can. So you have, if it's a misdemeanor, the basically the time period is a year and a day from the day that the incident occurred. So, for example, let's just say you and Glenn got in a fight. Glenn punches you in the face, Jimmy, and 6 months later you're like, you know what? I want Glenn charged. If it's within that statute of limitations of a year and a day, someone can be charged. Now, if it's a felony, it's infinite. You can be charged for something 5 years previous, but it's a year and a day. So she could decide later, or he could decide later that she wants charges. She could not. The other thing I can say real quick to charges is that she could want him charged originally, and then they could go to court and she could say, no, you know what? I'm over it. I don't really want to pursue with the charges. And in which case, 90% of the time they would be dropped unless, the state's attorney that looked over that case really wanted it to go forward anyway. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to pursue a case in which the victim doesn't want charges pressed. And you know what I mean? So,
right. Yeah, I'm sure. So I've been in a situation where the state's prosecutor I'm working with I had a gun held to my head years ago, right? And so I was working with the state prosecutor. And so ultimately they asked me like, hey, how aggressive do you want us to be towards this? So certainly the victim's opinion in this I'm sure weighs heavily on the prosecutor.
Correct. Yes.
Mind. Now, what about the information that could have been? So I guess my question is, do you believe, from your point of view, it's reasonable to think that the Ravens knew about this before the championship game?
There's a lot of complex situations involved in that. I would have to imagine they probably did, but I would have no way of knowing. I guess, if they're saying that the incident happened on the 21st, the AFC Championship was what, on the 28th? Mm-hmm. I guess it's certainly possible they didn't know, but I would find it highly unlikely.
Yeah.
I guess it just would depend on when she reported it to Boston and Boston contacted Baltimore and vice versa.
And then what about, we kind of talked about this. I think this is an important wrinkle. There's a law, of course, that protects the victims that makes those police reports much more difficult to be made public, right?
Correct,
So I guess really my question is, I'm wondering if the Ravens found out, but they weren't able to get their hands on this because it's a different type of situation that would normally be made more, accessible to them. So I don't really know what my question is here, but I'm wondering if that's a decent train of thought to think that maybe Zay was their only source of information, at that point? Like maybe he went to them and just said, "Hey, this is what happened," type thing, and they couldn't get more details on it.
So what I would venture to happen is because he wasn't charged originally on scene, is that maybe it didn't meet the criteria at the time, and there could be any number of situations to that. But I think it's certainly plausible that the Ravens didn't have a lot of information, especially if Zay was the only one that said something. So the Ravens very well might have been like, you know what, we don't have a lot of information to go off of yet. Because obviously, if it was super anything severe, not saying that this isn't severe, but if it was anything super severe, like he strangled her or whatever, that, he would have been arrested on site. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
And so it's certainly possible that the Ravens might have just said, we don't have a lot of information until we have further. Let's relax and see what comes out.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Wow, man. Well, unless you have anything else, I appreciate you joining with us, Sean.
Yeah, we don't want to take your whole lunch break here.
That's right. No, I'm just chilling. I was looking for someone that's evading me, so we're good.
Gotcha. Evading you. Okay. Well, I certainly hope that you catch him, Sean. I hope you find him, and as long as his name's not James Haskell, who's been known to talk on the phone and do live video while driving.
Hey, 10-2, baby.
10-2. Hey, I got video evidence. I have a year and a day.
A year and a day.
Dang it.
A year and a day.
Well, I'll tell you what, also, if Glenn did decide to punch me in the face, I would never press charges. I would probably just secretly pee on his car every single day.
Right on the door handle.
Right on the door. Just every single day. Every morning, I would just go pee on his car.
I think that meets the lines of destruction of property there, James.
That's all right. It's like canceling out penalties, right? Like
why is the snow only melted on my door handle? Why is that? Why is?
Oh, that's awesome.
Why is your door handle so warm all of a sudden? I don't know.
What's going on? Something's fishy. But Sean, thank you so much for joining us. We'll let you get back to it. And
thank you guys for having me on. It was good to meet you under this. Likewise. Unfortunately, it was under this. And if there's anything else I can do to help anybody that has any questions, like I said, I'm not a know-it-all, but I've been doing this for 11 years, and I've had a lot of situations just like this. So I just wanted to be able to share some possible insight on what could happen.
Oh, it was huge. That was great. Thank you so much, Sean. Have a great evening, and go catch some bad guys.
I will. You guys as well.
All right, take care, Sean.
See ya.
Man, okay. Well, we certainly got, and I appreciate him. This is exactly why we wanted to go live, in hopes that a police officer would give us some knowledge, because we don't know the rules, we don't know the laws, and he certainly, I mean, he helped me out a little bit to understand exactly what can happen. So, man, I guess what it comes down to is we still have to wait and see what more information comes out. But I think it's pretty safe to say, by judging from Sean's reaction, that the Ravens weren't in the dark about this. The Ravens weren't surprised today by this news, right? This is something. It's pretty safe to imagine that they knew at least a situation or a scenario. Something happened with Zay Flowers, and I think they knew about it before the AFC Championship game. So, if, again, hypothetical, guys, we don't know. We don't know what can happen. If something comes to this where she does press charges, whether he ends up being charged or ends up being found guilty or not, but if charges are pressed, how's it going to be in the media for the Ravens and for the NFL?
It will all depend on, because I understand Sean's point, right? They have cover until, as they continue to gather facts, and because the situation where, maybe they didn't have all the information before the championship game. So in my thought, they have some cover until charges are pressed. And if charges are pressed, to me, it really comes down to how the Ravens react. Yeah. Hey, shout out to Cole Jackson. Says Sean Pisker has officially topped any guest appearance I've made on 410 Sports Talk. Super insightful, sir. Thank you for your service. Yeah, I would agree. That was awesome. And it's just interesting, the perspective that it brings, right? Because it makes me think that, like, okay, there is a possibility here that this was sure, there was potentially some physicality here, but my thought, Glenn, the only reason that he played is that, okay, actually, let me back up. I'm not saying this correctly. To what you were saying, if charges are levied against him, it all will depend on how the Ravens act. That's how they will be judged. I don't think they will be judged on whether or not they let him play, because I think, like Sean said, it's fair. It's fair, I think, is the appropriate word, and logical to say that the Ravens didn't have enough information at that point to make a decision. Because you can't punish a guy off of 10% of the information.
No, because accusations, I'm sure, are levied against star athletes across this country all the time. So you certainly have to wade through and pick what is legitimate or what's just, somebody looking to either make a couple bucks or get some sort of fame out of the deal. You can't just go by every accusation. However, Jimbo, it's my understanding that she has a social media following, that his girlfriend or ex-girl, whatever she is, has a social media following. So let's say that the Ravens maybe choose not to cut the guy, and then she posts photograph. Because look, we got to remember, the Ravens were in defense of Ray Rice to a degree until the video dropped. Remember?
And then they dropped him like a rock, like a bad habit.
Dropped him like a rock.
They said, look, this is misinformation that was given to us, and there was a clear shunning.
Yep, exactly. And so if they err on the side of leniency because they don't have all the facts, and then a picture or a series of photos is dropped on social media where she does have visible injuries, man, it's gonna be a recreation of that media storm that we saw from Ray Rice, and I can't imagine that they'd be willing to risk that. So my thought is,
go ahead. Sorry.
Well, my thought is that if charges are pressed, I got to imagine they cut him immediately.
No. Yeah, I think that's the case as well. If charges are pressed against Zay Flowers,
we don't know photographs, by the way, guys. We have no idea.
No, right.
But all I'm saying is the Ray Rice situation skyrocketed the moment the video was dropped. Because, look, we heard so many stories across. I mean, I remember the Greg Hardy accusations that he body slammed a woman onto a sofa that was covered in AK-47s.
Right. Yeah.
But yet he didn't get the treatment Ray Rice got because there wasn't video of him body slamming. But if there's pictures, if there's photographic evidence of someone being of a beat up face, I got to imagine it takes it to another level. It may not be to the level of a video of him actually landing the punch like we saw with Ray Rice, but it escalates the situation if there's photographs, no doubt.
Yeah, no, I mean, even you think of most recently, the pretty terrible one was in the NBA, the young kid from the Houston Rockets who I believe that he broke one of the vertebrae of his girlfriend, who was also a professional athlete.
Yes.
Who, like, we're not talking about, the smallest, most frailest human on the face of the planet. I mean, man, so just having a medical report that says this human's vertebrae is broken, I mean, that is damning, right? So, I agree with you that will happen. I'm not saying his career will be over, but it will be over with the Ravens.
Yeah.
I agree.
And it would take a I guess a unique franchise to step out on the limb and bring a guy in who has, because the media storm that's following it, like, the accusation will be that this franchise doesn't care about domestic violence, is what they would say.
Jones will call him up. I mean, if he's
Well, whoever it is, I just remember, I remember when Mike Vick came back for the Eagles and the media storm that caused, and that's a guy, who went to prison, served time for what he did, and when he came, the media storm was for real, and that was over dog abuse. So I got to imagine, domestic violence with this team's history would be pretty brutal. And just as a Ravens fan, just as taking the player and aside from the issue, if I could for 1 second, I mean, it's just, they finally draft a wide receiver that seems to fit the organization as far as play style, his attitude. The fans love this guy. And for this to happen, I mean, look, we know last offseason was crazy. It was rocky. It was people trying to drive a wedge between the Ravens and Lamar Jackson. There was what's going on. I thought this offseason was going to be a simpler time, an easier time. But man, I mean, they're going to have to get rid of him and start over again at the wide receiver position, in my opinion.
Well, you're saying obviously hypothetically at this point,
hypothetically, right? Of course.
So
I hope what happens, is that this all comes out that it was just an argument, and cops were called strictly to address the loud voices, and that was it.
Yeah, let me tell you, I think this is what's going to happen. I think that my opinion. I think that he won't get charges pressed. I think that he will get suspended because the league can still suspend him even if he's not charged.
Yep. That's why Big Ben.
I think he'll get suspended.
Yeah.
And I think the Ravens will stay in support of Zay in saying something to the effect of the details that we've gathered make us believe that, this was I don't know what the proper word is that they would say. I don't want to say minor situation, but a misunderstanding, right? Or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Right. I just have a feeling that if it was more detrimental than what, if it was as detrimental as the worst case scenario, kind of like what you were talking about, I think that the media would have been more on it today than they were. Like, I still haven't even seen it on ESPN yet. Like, if you go to the ESPN website, it is not up. As far as I can see, it's only been posted in one place. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I feel like if there was more fodder, then the situation is probably. That's just my opinion. This is just me speaking, right? Like, so yeah. I think Zay ends up with a suspension. I think he stays with the Ravens, and I think that they chalk this up to a fight and a misunderstanding.
Okay.
And bad feelings, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think every Ravens fan is hoping for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I know that I'm watching a video now of, I think it's the girl allegedly from this incident where she's fighting a cheerleader at the Boston College game.
Like recently?
Yeah. No, well, when he was in Boston College, when Zay Flowers was playing as Boston. So fairly recently, a year ago. And it's just it's literally like 6-second clip of her basically attacking a cheerleader. And I don't know what happened before this video, but she definitely, she's aggressive. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if this is her. This is what it's being reported that this is her, but who knows if that is in fact even her, or just some random girl at a BC college football game. But
oh dang, I just saw that.
Okay, yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, I don't know, man. And of course.
What's that?
I scroll down and I see video of Ray Rice, the Ray Rice video too.
Yeah.
So immediately it's going to get, of course, tied back to that. And so, yeah, I mean, it's the number one trending thing right now on Twitter. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. Jimbo, your hair looks great, by the way, I see.
Wait, who said that?
Baltimore football history.
Oh, my hair's a mess right now. I need to get a haircut, dude. I appreciate the change of subject, though. I hate talking about this crap.
Yeah, I know. This sucks. Believe me, guys, we did not want to even... because we don't know what to say, how we can say it. Let's see. Hunter has a super chat. He said, what if he actually did it and gets cut? What do we do with the wide receiver position? Hopefully everyone is safe. You start over again at the draw. I mean, you still got Rashad Bateman. So it's not like you're starting from a completely bare cupboard, but yeah, I mean, you start over again.
Yeah, what else is there to do other than
get back up to the plate and keep swinging for the fences when it comes to wide receiver. But man, this would be just devastating, man. It would just be so sad because I love Zay,
The
man. Like his
energy.
smile, the way he saw when he was signing balls. He signed my son's football, and like he looks at the kids in the eyes and laughs at their jokes, and it's more like it's more than just him walking down the line with his head down, signing anything that gets handed his way. Like he was more than just a guy signing. Like he was connecting with the young fans, making their day. And I mean, he was also a hell of a player and just a guy who was ready for the biggest moments. And yeah, he fumbled, but he was ready for the biggest moments.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't know. I just hope that this is simply an argument, but we have to. I guess that's what we're here for. We're here to say, what if and if it could have, and but let's just hope we're on here talking about how the story was just an argument and they all move on from it.
Yeah, here's the hoping, right?
Yeah,
here's the hoping for the best outcome for all those involved. But I think that's it for us tonight, Glenn.
Yeah, now we'll be back if more information comes out. If things change, we'll certainly jump back in here and we'll talk about it. But yeah, we hope that what we did was at least give you the information that was available to us. And shout out again to Sean for joining us and letting us know at least the legal, some of the legal side of things, and let us know what can be done, what can't be done. And we'll just keep following the situation and certainly keep you guys up to date with what's going on. But yeah, we'll I'm not sure what that means, Jason.
He's a narcissist.
Sure you talking about Zay or?
Yeah.
Are you talking about Zay's a narcissist?
I guess, yeah.
Dang. Okay. All right, man. More salt in the wound, like Jack says. Holy smokes! You lose this, your whole defensive coaching staff gets absolutely picked through, and then your young stud is in the middle of these accusations. Man, it's been a tough couple of weeks for Ravens fans, and but guys, we'll be back. We'll keep you guys up to date, and but yeah, that's it for us tonight. Have a good one. See you.
See ya.